How can we find meaning and purpose in life, and from what age can we start to cultivate this skill? My name's Hayden, and as a part of my Masters of Applied Positive Psychology at the University of Melbourne, in collaboration with Smiling Mind, I set out to answer this question. So in today's video, we're going to talk about how we can cultivate meaning in our lives and why this is such an important skill to develop from a young age. We're then going to hit to the streets and hear what everyday people think about meaning in life, what challenges they find, and what concerns they have for the younger generation. Finally, I'll present some research-backed practical ways that we can help children find more meaning and purpose in their life. So let's go talk to the guys at Smiling Mind and see what they have to say about it. Hey, you got time for a chat?
Hey Hayden, let me check. Yep, let's chat.
Awesome. Hattie, thanks for taking the time for a chat.
My pleasure.
I sort of wanted to talk about how right now across the globe we're seeing mental health, reach sort of crisis levels, particularly amongst younger generations. We know that over more than half of mental health conditions arise before the age of 14. So how is Smiling Mind thinking about tackling this big problem with youth?
Yeah, it is a massive problem. We're seeing lots and lots of young people really struggling, and unfortunately that's getting younger and younger. So children also experiencing mental health problems. And for us, that's a sign that the system that we've got now isn't meeting the needs. We're not tackling the problem in the right way. And I think that it is really based on the fact that our mental health system is built on a medical model that intervenes or supports people when they're at crisis point. And there are amazing services out there that offer amazing treatments that really do work really well. But in order to stem that tide, that increase of mental health challenges, we need to do that plus something else. And for us, that's a really big sign that prevention is a really important part of the puzzle. And for us, that's about skill building. How do we build skills early in life, just like every other skill that we have to learn as we're growing up? Mental health and wellbeing should be part of that jigsaw.
Yeah, and I guess what's been the biggest challenge in sort of tackling this issue, because obviously you're coming at it from quite a newer lens of prevention. What's been the kind of difficulty in getting society, governments, all the stakeholders on board with this?
Yeah, it is a different way of looking at it, particularly with mental health, because when we talk about mental health, most people, their mental model about mental health is crisis. It might be anxiety, it might be depression, it might be someone experiencing more complex mental health conditions. So if our immediate assumption is that, it takes a fair bit of effort to bring people back to think about mental health in a bit of a different way. And I suppose the one thing to remember is that we all have a mental health. We're all on a spectrum of different levels of healthy versus unhealthy, or coping really well through to struggling. And so what we need to do is help people understand that prevention in this context is about building skills, building our capabilities, building our mental fitness. And there's kind of two levels to that change. One is kind of the bureaucratic government policy level, and the other is the general public. From a government perspective, things move really slowly. So we've seen this in all parts of prevention across all health issues. But there are signs that it's starting to change. So we're starting to see prevention mentioned in different policy documents and strategies. But the next stage is getting that to hit the ground. So at the moment, we are still very much focused on funding crisis. 99% of the budget, the mental health budget, is invested in crisis, and 1% goes into prevention.
Wow.
So we've still got a bit of a way to go to swing that around. But it's starting to happen. And then the community side of things, I think there's actually more openness to prevention than we originally thought there might be. So, we've seen this big change in terms of attitudes and behaviours around physical health. People over the generations have grown to understand that we have to exercise, we have to eat well to be physically healthy. Big changes in smoking and drinking culture and all of that stuff is a sign of that change. But so in terms of mental health, we know that there's an openness and that, there's an understanding that mental health is important. We know from our surveys, we do a big survey called State of Mind, and that survey found that the vast majority of people felt that mental health and physical health were equally important, which is pretty awesome. The next step, though, is helping people understand what they can do proactively to support their mental health. So that's where a bit of work still needs to be done, I think, for people to really understand. It's not just thinking about mental health, it's about doing things, putting things into action in your everyday life that will support your mental health and well-being.
Yeah, definitely. Even just my generation, seen that change a lot from some of my friends, all about going out and drinking, and now getting up early and going to an ice bath and infrared sauna. So, we are seeing that shift, which is really good. And I suppose in terms of building that skill from like a young age, can you tell us a bit about kind of how you've thought about codifying, which skills to build in this mental fitness model, and your kind of journey with coming up with that, and how do you help children develop these skills?
Our team did a huge amount of work looking at all of the wellbeing models around the globe and understanding all of the research literature, and where they landed was a model that has 5 different pillars. So living mindfully is the one that links to our history. So mindfulness for us is really important. It's about building awareness, living in the moment, learning how to navigate the world with a bit of space, so not reacting to everything and giving ourselves space to do that. Embracing flexible thinking is the second area, so learning that our minds are flexible, they're dynamic, we learn things, we can change, and having one set view of ourselves or about others can limit us. So learning how to be flexible in our thinking. The other is about acting purposefully. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And that for us is a really important one. It's about bringing our values into our everyday living and living in alignment with our values. So knowing what we value in life, how we navigate life and living in align with that. Growing connections is really important. So social connection. And that is about not just the number of people that we have in our network, but the depth and the quality of those connections, having that secure, really great base of people that we can turn to whenever we need to, and that give us joy and help us learn new things. And then recharging our body is our 5th pillar. So that connection between mind and body, making sure that we're getting enough sleep, that we're exercising, and helping people understand that that is also a work in progress, that over our life things will change and we need to do more or less of something, but understanding that our physical body impacts our mental health.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, obviously acting purposefully is where I have come in, and curious to hear, why was that really important for you to get further information on, to double click into and understand the research? What were you hearing from people when they were trying to navigate these skills, and what challenges were they running into?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So the research tells us that purpose is really critical to our well-being. If we stop and think about it, we probably all understand that. We felt our most focused, our most driven, our most engaged and satisfied when we've got a purpose. We're working towards something, or we're connecting with our values. We understand our place in the world. So that made absolute sense. What we realised, though, is that applying that to different age groups is really different. So we hadn't found much research that had shown us that how to teach these skills, particularly for children. And when we launched our mental fitness model, we had queries from parents around, oh, this makes sense, but how do you teach that to kids who are 6, 7, 8? So we really wanted to delve into what does the literature tell us, what other researchers have been working in this space, how have they been tackling this idea, and then how can we take that and enhance and build out more appropriate strategies and content for younger kids.
Thanks, Addie. That gives me a lot to think about. So to solve for this, I'm going to set out to answer 2 key research questions. One is, what are the interventions that have the most impact in helping children between the ages of 6 to 12 develop meaning in life? And the second is, by what mechanisms is this cultivated? So let's get into it and see what we find. So getting into it, what I began seeing was that to date, most of the research in cultivating meaning in life is just been focused on adolescence, with some debate in the field. Some say the capacity to consolidate a sense of self and life tend to actively develop only in adolescence, whilst others say children as young as 6 can describe meaning in life when asked concrete questions and reevaluate it after traumatic events. But before I dive further into this, I wanted to see what the streets thought. So let's go and find out. So here's Michelle. Michelle, would love to know, when I say the words meaning and purpose in life, what comes to mind?
Meaning, bigger picture, and purpose, maybe your direction or direction given to you by God and family.
Meaning and purpose, I think you can interchange them a bit.
I mean, just finding a reason to like live and, things to enjoy.
It's the kind of thing that would, I think, motivate you to get out of bed in the morning.
And what are the things that you do in your life to feel more meaning and purpose?
Serve my country and serve my next generation.
When you're younger, you're very self-absorbed a little bit. Not that it's a bad thing. It's all you know. Like, you're probably just going out at the weekends. Your purpose is having fun, friends, travel. Like, that would have definitely been my main purpose before kids. Now everything revolves around my daughter and this one, and just making sure that they have a stable upbringing, making sure they're grounded, nice, good people.
To experience a meaningful life to me is to enjoy all of it while also being responsible for me and the thing and the people and objects around me. So for example, the environment, myself, my mental health, other people's mental health around me.
And I try to connect with other people in my professional life as well. I'm a clinician, I'm a psychiatrist, and obviously that involves making a connection with patients and trying to give them a reason to sort of go on.
What are you seeing people these days losing maybe their connection with when it comes to meaning in life?
Having just trouble staying connected to people that they care about. A lot of people will have their own financial problems, for example, and that prevents them. I mean, they're going to have to spend too much time at work, or they just don't have enough money to go and visit people.
You know how the best and the brightest minds get sucked into corporate capitalism, and then their lives are basically going from wanting meaningful lives. We end up just in a sausage factory doing bullshit jobs.
At least in the Western world, the entire societies are really oversaturated with luxury and consumption. We consume definitely too much.
What are the things in today's climate you think really put children at risk of getting on the wrong path when it comes to meaning and purpose?
Social media scares the hell out of me. I didn't grow up with social, I did later years, like late teens. So I didn't have to go through being exposed to everything at your fingertips from such a young age. So that really frightens me. I don't know how to manage that. I don't know how you shield kids from that.
I mean, there's a lot of talk about social media and stuff now, especially with the age ban on social media use. I think that is a step in the right direction. I don't think it's really, the actual ban itself isn't really well implemented. I think parents should discourage children from getting into more sort of these sort of fake kind of relationships with people online, and try and get them more, to be, more in-person kind of interactions. I think it's a lot better.
From what age do you think we can help them better understand how to find meaning and purpose? Like, when do you think a child could actually register that?
Round about 6 years. Below, they are too young, they are too much overwhelmed from what they start to realize and to see. But I think from about 6 years on, it might make sense.
It tends to be in early teenagehood, I think. It varies though. Some children, become mature a lot sooner. But in general, I would say around 12, 13 is when they start to become more articulate in their ability to explain abstract concepts, things like meaning and hope and community and all those kind of things.
I think kids, we don't give them enough credit sometimes. Like, I don't think they're going to fully understand the meaning or anything like that, but they pick up energy, emotions really, really quickly from a really young age. Like, they know, like, my daughter's 1.5, and when she's doing something wrong, she's looking at me. She kind of knows, like, they do pick up, and it's probably not understanding, but it's a feel, it's a sense, it's an energy.
As soon as they develop language for me, as soon as 5, 6 years old, teaching them to go out and help people. For example, cooking food for the homeless. That could help them a lot. Setting a class where they could go out of school and help out other people in their community, such as an aged care home.
With your kind of child on the way, or you might already have one, that sounds,
Yeah.
what are kind of the things that you do to try and help them find and feel more meaning in life?
My daughter's only 1.5, so her meaning in life is snacks at the minute. So I haven't really had experience of that yet, but definitely just being a kind person. That's going to be my main thing bringing up my kids, is that they're good people, that they look out for other people, that they don't judge other people, that they don't necessarily have ideologies of themselves that's any better or bigger than anyone else. Everyone is human. I want them to be just good, decent people and contribute to the world as much as possible, even in small ways.
When I had 3 little children at that age,
Yeah.
I tried to teach them, focus on the important things, don't follow too much luxury things, be happy with the things you have, be open-minded, be excited. Yeah, these are the major things.
Being where I am working in addiction medicine, definitely avoid quick fixes like drugs and alcohol, or any other sort of things like online, like media, those quick dopamine hits you get from social media, clickbait stuff. Form genuine connections with people without the internet.
The only thing I think we need to teach our kids is what we need to teach ourselves, which is to say we have to learn to accept what is already there, what is present in us. That means coming to terms with difficult emotions, awkward, uncomfortable. A whole purpose is to resist, right? And that's a very Buddhist thing, is to learn to not resist, to learn to accept, to learn to let it be. And by letting it be, you discover one of the greatest truths, which is that all things are transient and impermanent. You don't have to worry about it. We're too busy trying to fix ourselves.
So that's what the streets had to say. Now let's compare that to the latest research. First off, it's important to define any topic before researching so there's a clear scope. A clear framework for meaning in life has only come in recent years. Meaning and purpose are often used interchangeably, and we saw this on the streets with there not really being a clear understanding between different people. The meaning in life tripartite model is the most widely accepted model to codify this. It has meaning in life made up of 3 subcomponents. Purpose, a motivational component which involves having goals that give you direction in life. Significance, an evaluative component which reflects the feeling that your life matters and is valued. And lastly, coherence, a cognitive component, the feeling that your life experiences make sense and are integrated rather than it feeling like an unpredictable chaos. The street spoke mostly to the elements of purpose, such as people talking about their meaningful career pursuits, and significance, feeling valued by family and friends. But coherence was only really mentioned by one person through their exposure to Buddhism, which teaches detachment and acceptance of suffering, which helps us better make sense and integrate difficult moments in life. It is often the trickiest one to understand, so let me explain with an example from Viktor Frankl, one of the most prominent thought leaders in this space. In his book, Frankl recounts the case of an elderly man suffering from severe depression after the death of his beloved wife. The man was consumed by grief and unable to find a reason to continue living without her. Frankl asked the man to consider a different perspective, saying, "What would have happened if you had died first and your wife would have had to survive without you?" His reply, "Oh, for her, this would have been terrible, how she would have suffered." Frankl helped him reframe, then saying, "You see, you have spared her that suffering. Your grief is real, but it's the price you paid so she didn't have to." The man walked out cured, so they say. So now we've sort of defined purpose, significance, coherence. What does the research say about how early we can start to cultivate these skills? To find out, I conducted a systematic literature review. In simple terms, this just involves scanning the whole universe of research on a specific area to summarize the key findings. This process involved making sure I found all articles in a research sphere that met my inclusion criteria. That is, they had to be peer-reviewed studies, written in English, and assessing the effects, both qualitative and or quantitative, of interventions on meaning in life in school-aged children between 6 to 12 years old and in the general population. I went through 480 studies and ultimately narrowed down to 9 that strictly met my criteria. It was a small but significant sample that was also fairly diverse, spanning 8 countries across both quant and qual methods. Most interventions, around 80%, positively impacted children's meaning in life with small to large effect sizes. Interventions that touched all 3 of the tripartite model were associated with stronger outcomes. Examples of intervention for children to help with purpose include goal-setting interventions. For example, in a school in Japan, they get their students in pairs to help each other develop a goal for the day. Then they each present in a circle in front of their peers where they receive encouragement from one another and from their teacher. At the end of the day, they self-reflect on their goal and then they share their reflections back to the circle, which would then lead to next day's goal. Other examples include things like career exploration activities and community service projects. Examples of interventions to help with significance include displays of appreciation, such as writing appreciating notes for family and peers, or making gifts for others, and reflective activities on the people important to our lives and why they matter. And finally, coherence. Interventions to improve this include helping children better control their attitudes towards negative emotions through fictional stories that help them understand the value of all emotions. Inside Out, the movie, is a great example of this, teaching students that sadness is useful as it helps us seek connection and support to change something in our lives. Ecological mindfulness was also taught. That is mindfulness that focuses on teaching unity between the self, others, and the world. For example, Smiling Mind have a really great meditation that practices this. So let's do a little bit of it together.
Feel the air that moves around this great land. This is the air of our country. The air that you breathe. The air that blows in cities. It is the air of the outback. It is the air that connects us to people, to plants, to animals. We all breathe this air. Breathe. Breathe.
Another study used a photo scrapbook activity where children reflected on important moments, people, and places in their lives to better understand their emotions and their roles at home, school, and other social settings. I've actually done this activity with my own room recently, adding a photo board to reflect on my journey from childhood to adulthood and the people and places important to me. So with all these findings in mind, what does that now mean for the real world and in practice?
Well, these findings provide evidence that meaning in life can be cultivated in young children. It would be great to see more interventions, such as the examples I've shown, provided in school settings, alongside more digital interventions, such as that of Smiling Mind, which help provide access to young people at scale. Secondly, it would be great to see more research that explores the developmental differences across age ranges for experiencing meaning in life, and more research into can we cultivate this from even earlier ages so that we can enable every child to have the best possible start to life.
Thanks for watching Street Psychology TV. If you want to check out my research, you can find it on the International Journal of Applied Positive Psychology, and give me a follow on LinkedIn for more content.